The actual contents of this video starts at this timestamp right here, so feel free to jump to there if you want to skip my preamble. Hello there. Oh, no. Hello there. Insert Obi-Wan meme. Hello there.
Hello there. Hello there.
Hi there folks, my name is Ben, and on this channel I like to talk about tech. And in particular, I like to do programmy, codey things to help other devs. And every once in a while, when the time is right, I like to make videos that are different. I refer to these videos as twaddle. Rants, opinions, vloggy things, just stuff that is different from my usual stuff. This is one of those videos, and is essentially a way for me to say thank you in a bit of a special way. Anyway, in this video, I want to talk about 5 things. Things that I wish I'd known right back at the start of my programming career. These things would have supercharged my progress, helped me constantly and consistently grow as a developer, and I guess just made me better at my job sooner. I know, it's a really clickbaity title, but stick with me, because I think you might find at least a couple of these things quite interesting, useful, maybe a bit different, and beneficial to not only your career, but maybe even your life. Okay, enough talk, let's go. Well, I'm back. Remember me? I guess it's been a little while since you saw me sitting in this little YouTube video player box. In fact, it's been over a year since my last techie-related video on this channel. Whoops. And within that time, I've managed to miss a bunch of subscriber count milestones. First, as usual, I would like to say a massive thank you for continuing to support me and this channel. Now, I do feel like I owe you a little bit, so enjoy this chaos. So I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you. And of course, if you haven't already and you enjoy what I do on this channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. And of course, if you like this video, give that thumbs up icon a little tickle. Okay, so 5 things that I wish I knew at the start of my programming career, or some sort of title similar to that. But I'm very aware that this topic has been done to death, so I want to put my own spin on it. A lot of the videos that I've seen along this topic give quite ambiguous advice, or like less actionable things. But I want to take a practical approach. Actionable, tangible things that you can take away and start implementing into your workflow or life immediately. Right, without further ado, let's jump into the list. Number 1. So I'm going to start with my favorite entry on this list straight away. This wonderful piece of advice was given to me by one of my great mentors from the past, and now somebody that I have the pleasure and honor to call a friend. His name is Graham, and actually, selfish plug, I did a video with Graham, an interview as an Android developer many years ago that's on my channel. You can check that out here. He told me this: instead of copying over code from somewhere else to your code base, you should instead type it over. As developers, we often need to get code from somewhere else. For example, copying a chunk of code from Stack Overflow. Before this advice, I used to just find the code I needed, maybe that started an activity in Android, copy over the chunk, paste it into my code base, and replace the bits that I needed to replace. And of course that works, but what did I really learn from that? Yes, maybe you even understand some parts of the code snippet, but by copying and pasting it in, without really understanding each and every part of that code, you've added some ambiguity, some mystery, some black box into your code. By pasting in the code, you're skipping an important cognitive step. You're not mentally digesting it and using your brain to understand what you're building. By going through the snippet that you want to bring over and typing it out character by character, it forces you back into that constructive understanding mindset. Yes, it may be slower, but by typing it, it forces you to understand in each and every bit that's coming into your code base. It also invokes questions and curiosity. Maybe you just typed public static void and you want to understand what is void, what is public, what is static. It forces you to break down the code, learning it bit by bit, investigating small chunks, and make sure that you truly understand the code that's coming into your code base. The superpower here is really for your own learning. It's not with the intent to be able to memorize this code snippet for when you need it again in the future. No, it's still okay to look it up again, but instead it forces you back into that state of you actually writing and creating the code. For me, and the reason why this tip is my favorite, is it was an absolute game changer for me in my career. Earlier in my career, I had a fair bit of imposter syndrome, as I imagine most of you do, but the copying and pasting code over was maybe making that imposter syndrome worse. By just copying and over these complex chunks of things that, yes, maybe worked, but I didn't really understand them. I felt more and more like an imposter. It made me feel really dumb and like I didn't really know what I was doing. But then when Graham told me this very simple piece of advice, it started to change everything. Instead of just rushing and throwing code into the code base to complete a ticket, I started to slow down. I started to learn as I was coding. I started to ask more questions about the code that I was typing. These questions led me to other areas of the wider Android ecosystem in my case, helping me discover other areas that I hadn't even looked into yet. Anyway, that's the first tip. Don't copy and paste, type it in. Number 2. The next one isn't to do with coding. It's just a useful life tip that I've heard. Some people refer to it as the one-touch system. Others call it the 5-minute or 2-minute rule. And it's this: if you can do a task now and it takes 2 minutes or less, or 5 minutes or less, you should do it right now immediately, instead of adding it to a to-do list. Do it now. Obviously, we've all got massive to-do lists in our head or little tasks that we need to do. And when we get a new one, we often think, yep, I need to do X, Y, and Z. We'll put it on a to-do list and we'll come to it later. We're putting that task off for now. We're adding it to our cognitive dumpster of other things that we sort of have floating around in the back of our heads that we need to do. Or maybe it's on a ever-growing to-do list on a piece of paper or wherever. Instead of just doing that thing right now. I mean, it's quick, why not? By adding it to a to-do list, whether in your head or on paper, you're adding just this extra tiny chunk of stress, this extra little tiny, maybe Lego block of something weighing on your mind. Whereas the alternative is that it's not there. It's done already. So for me now, when I have a task in front of me, I ask myself quickly some questions. Can I do this right now? Do I have the tools and capability to do this task now? And does it take 2 minutes or less? If yes, then I do it now and it's done. By doing those small little annoying tasks, it doesn't clog up a big to-do list. It makes you feel more productive as well in the day. You're actually doing more things, you're completing more tasks. It's better for your mental health. Anything that takes cognitive load off is good. Your future self will thank you. Thanks, past Ben. You're welcome, future Ben. Number 3. This is another tip that's particularly good and useful for programmers or people that work with computers, and I call it the help file. It's simply a central file on your machine called help in your home directory or wherever you would like to store it. In this file, you should store chunk after chunk of useful information. Maybe it's code snippets, maybe it's instructions on how to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's links to articles and videos that you found particularly helpful. This file should be full of information of things that you have learned, things that you didn't know how to do before. You looked up said thing, figured out how to do it, maybe did the thing, but then you should document how you did that thing in the help file so that you're not just getting the answer and forgetting about it, you're documenting it somewhere so that if you need it again in the future, which you likely will, you know that it's already stored in your help file in a way that you can read and understand it because you wrote it. You don't need to struggle to precisely and accurately remember the thing that you've learnt in your head. Instead, you just need to remember, I've done that thing before, let me go to the help file and find it. Let me just show you my help file so that you can see the type of things that I'm storing in it. So I'm just going to open up my help file. I call it help.md. It's a markdown file in markdown format. As soon as I open it, you can see that I've used the markdown format, these hashtags here to denote a title or a subtitle, and then an indentation in the markdown format, that would come out as like code formatted. So that there is a chunk with each title starting a new chunk, another chunk there, another chunk there, and so on. Each of these things are little quick things that I've looked up and wanted to jot down to remember how to do again. So for example, the most recent one, I wanted to check if a file was ignored in Git, and I didn't know that there was a check-ignore command. So I put that into my help file. A little further down, you can see I've been doing some Terraform commands recently, some Docker things, and I wanted to remember how to do those things again in the future. So in the future, if I think to myself, how do I auto-format in Terraform? I remember that I've done it in the past, but I've forgotten the command. I can come to the help file and start searching, and I can do, I don't know, format Terraform, using the search function of the text editor that I'm using. I can go to there and I can find, auto-format Terraform files, and there's a command. Nice. And actually, if I just jump down to the bottom of my file to show you, I've got 3,500 lines, and I've been working on this help file, and the format's changed a little bit over the years, but I've been working on it for ages. You can see one of the first things that I was looking for was like PS1, so like prompt customization in the shell. So yeah, there you go. Help file. The tip itself is about having this help file and building on it as you learn yourself and as you progress. And actually, on that note, I'd like to combine a little sort of extra tip to this tip, and it's the idea of dot files. And if you don't know what dot files are, I'll put more information in the description below so you can read more, but it's essentially a way for you to encapsulate your working environment, your machine environment, put it into some sort of configuration files or dot files, and then as you move around, maybe changing machines, changing PCs, you can use these dot files to recreate that sort of environment for yourself. So instead of when you move to a new PC, you have to reset it up all, how you liked it, all the colors, all of the configuration, etc. No, you'll have this dot files thing, a repository usually, where you can just bring that over to your machine and it's good to go, and your environment is as it was. There's a lot more to learn on dot files, that's just the brief. By the way, the kind of files I'm talking about are like your bash RC, your bash profile, maybe your tmux config, your vim RC, and that's why this thing is called dot files, because all of those aforementioned files start with the full stop character, the dot character, because on Unixy-based system, that means a hidden file, a file that is usually just obscured from the generic ls command. So what I'm trying to say is that my help file, my help.md file, is actually part of my dot files repository. It's part of my recreatable environment that I move from machine to machine. And that's how I've been working on it for so long. I've had it at previous jobs, previous companies, years gone by. I edit the file, add the things I want to learn, and then because it's part of this dot files repository, then I can easily port it to different places and machines and easily build on it, and of course, use the learnings from the past. As another quick added benefit, if ever you're in a state where you lose access to the internet and you need to look something up, and you've already done that thing, then you don't need the internet because you've got the help file with enough information for you to do that thing again. Help files essentially record your learning and help you quickly find things you've done in the past, as well as document things for the future. Number 4. Again, a really simple one, and maybe you already do this. This is especially useful if you work in agile teams, and if ever you need to sort of report back to your team in like maybe a stand-up meeting. And the tip is simply this, and I wish I'd known it sooner, but log what you're doing and what you've done for stand-up. It's simple, however you want to do it, so that when it comes time to report back to your team, you don't just stand there looking like a fool trying to remember what you've done. You've got a log of that work already that you can use to tell them. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've come to a stand-up and then it's my turn and I look like a muppet with nothing beneficial to report on because I simply can't remember. Not only that, but if you're working in tech, you likely get pulled off of your main task that you're focusing on to do different little tasks like bug fixes or whatever. Those things need logging too because they're very easy to forget, and you also should report that information to your team. I won't bother showing you this because it's very simple, but for me, I log on my computer. In my home directory, I have a file called log.md. As I complete some small logical chunk of work, I'll add it to the log file. And on that note, I like to mentally link commits and git commits to logging work. Whenever I do a commit, I go to my log file. Because of that mental link, when I do a commit log file, it's easy for me to not forget to log. And maybe if you do forget as well, maybe you could integrate it into some sort of Git hook. And also, I don't need to then think of what I write in my log file because commits come with commit messages. So I can just use the commit message that I've already used into my log file, and it's even quicker and easier. So now when you go to your stand-up meeting, you can open up your log file, simply have a list of the things that you've done, ready to tell your team. No longer do you look like a Muppet trying to remember what you did yesterday. Number 5. Okay, last one. This one's techie. In fact, it's about very specific technologies that I wish I'd known about sooner and knew how to work with sooner. Unfortunately, this tip is just me saying 3 technologies to you. There are loads of things that should be on this list, but I wanted to boil it down to, in my opinion, the most important 3, at least for me and my career. These 3 technologies, tools, or ideas are things that I wish I'd known how to manipulate and control and work with sooner. These are Git, package managers, and the terminal. I'll quickly just talk about each. Git, of course, is the version control software. Sorry to selfish plug, but I do have a bunch of videos teaching you how to use Git. If you'd like to learn, find them here. In my opinion, every developer needs to understand Git. So many people don't understand what's really happening with Git and just copy and paste commands they find from the internet, or just do the same old commands they've always done without really knowing what it's doing. With a more deeper and thorough knowledge of Git and what it's doing under the hood, you'll find working with Git more fun and more successful. And in those annoying situations that will happen where you do something slightly wrong with Git, if you understand what you're doing, first of all, you won't hit those circumstances, but you'll know how to resolve it without losing your work. Fun quick fact about me, in the past, I used to hate Git. I hated it because it was necessary, but I didn't understand it at all. I had to use it because I worked on a team, but it was this weird black box that made no sense to me, and I fought against it all the time. I'd prefer just to go over to someone's desk with a USB pen, genuinely, than deal with Git. One day, I finally put my stubborn walls down and gave in and learnt Git and spent the time to understand it. I'm still to this day learning some of the more complex, advanced, crazy things that Git can do. But the moment that I changed and started to really understand what was going on when I was doing Git add or Git commit, life got easier, development got better, and working in a team got better. And now I love Git and try and help other people understand it. Next is the concept of package managers. These tools that help you install dependencies that your codebase relies upon. Most modern languages need a way of installing dependencies, as nowadays it would be totally insane to rewrite your own HTTP client or whatever, when there's a perfectly good existing one already to use. And of course, to bring in that ready to use one, it'd be awful if you had to go and download it from the internet and put it in the right place in your codebase. Package managers deal with all of this for you. They make life easier. I'm talking about things like NPM, Node Package Manager, or like Ruby gems, or even Maven dependencies for Java Kotlin-based projects. Let's take NPM as just a quick example. The project will have a file called package.json, which will list the dependencies. And when you run npm install, it will take that file and install all the dependencies ready for your code to use. Lovely. Not only that, but it can install things in a different way. You could install dependencies globally to your machine, to your project, or just for development on your project. Dependencies that shouldn't be downloaded when the actual production version of the project is run. Package managers can also provide you with ways to run scripts like npm run blah to start up your web server or to do whatever. So package managers. And the last one, of course, is the terminal or command line usage, which I am absolutely crazy about. When I think back to university and when I was originally learning to code, it seems mad that the only way that we could run our projects was by opening the IDE, Visual Studio, whatever in that case, and hitting the play button to run our code. It's mad that we'd need another application, even a GUI one, to run another piece of software. But when people are starting with computers, they learn the GUI way. And to be honest, most people can use a GUI their whole lives and not worry about it. But when you're a software developer, the GUI starts to become not enough. And for me, I have a very particular memory about the moment that I realized, oh, I need to learn how to use the terminal. It was back in an old job. I needed to change a file on a server. The server had no screen, no GUI, and was physically elsewhere. I needed a tool like SSH to be able to get access to that machine. Then I needed a text editor to be able to change the file without a GUI. And in this moment, I discovered Nano, and the world of the terminal just exploded in front of me. I started to get really interested and curious. I wanted to learn about tools like curl, wget, sed, ls, cd, all of these wonderful commands that made me able to control the computer without a GUI. Being able to manipulate the terminal gave me control. It enabled me to write scripts as well, to automate a bunch of my workflow and mundane tasks that I still do to this day. When I started, it was super difficult to learn. The learning curve was dreadful, but with a bit of persistence, it really unlocked a superpower. And to this day, I honestly believe that the best thing I've ever learned was the terminal and how to use it properly. I use it every single day, and I even work faster and better now because of it. So, Git, package managers, and the terminal. Go learn those things now. I promise you won't regret it. List over. Whew, well, that was it. Those are the 5, hopefully quick, tips and tricks, pieces of advice that I wish I'd known about sooner and now use on a daily basis. I hope you can take some of them away and utilize them in your workflow today.
Hello, Father. I've been watching you. I've been listening to you. I've been wanting to be you.
Oh, it's just a dream. It's just a dream. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, to the 7,000 of you that have subscribed to this dumb channel. Thank you. Of course, if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to ding the bell if you want to be notified about when I release new videos, which I hopefully will do on a more regular basis now. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Ben_Kadel, or of course Mastodon at Ben_Kadel at androiddev.social. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Why does the screen always give up like that? Ding, 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 ding. Should have done this earlier. This is silly. I should do it in front of the green screen. I have a bunch of things to read to. Number 5. Ay caramba.